by the banality of evil. What does all this even mean? So Hannah Arendt is supposed to be, or is was a great author, a great researcher, and she investigated Nuremberg trials and what happened at Nuremberg trials. And World War II खत्म हुआ था, Germany lost, Hitler died by suicide. Now there are other people in the Nazi regime जो जिंदा है, तो वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म हुआ है, जर्मनी हार चुकी है, तो ऑब्वियसली एक ऑप्शन था कि सारे जो जर्मन लीडर्स हैं उनको उस टाइम के उनको एक लाइन में खड़ा रखो और गोली मार दो. दूसरा ऑप्शन चूज किया गया जो था कि उनका ट्रायल्स करो. अब उनके ट्रायल्स में बहुत कुछ नया पता चला लोगों को कि यू नो व्हाट हैपेंड, व्हाट वाज देयर साइकी लाइक, वो सोच कैसे रहे थे. इतने सारे लोग मरे, सो मेनी पीपल डाइड ड्यूरिंग वर्ल्ड वॉर 2. एक्सटर्मिनेशन ऑफ ज्यूज वाज डन ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम इन जर्मनी, दैट इज टॉक्ड अबाउट. सो वहाँ पे शी टॉक्स अबाउट द बनालिटी ऑफ ईविल. कि हम लोग जब सोचते हैं ना कि मैं तुम्हें बोलूँगा कि यार एक ईविल इंसान कैसा दिखता है, एक गंदा आदमी कैसा दिखता है, एक शैतान इंसान कैसा होता है, तो तुम्हारे दिमाग में आएगा उसके दो दांत हैं, दो हॉर्न्स हैं, वो एकदम बहुत ही एकदम डेंजरस दिख रहा है, उसकी आंखें लाल हैं, उसके मुंह पे खून लगा है, वो उसकी बिल्कुल वो राक्षस जैसा दिख रहा है, तुम ये सोचोगे. इसको बिल्कुल उल्टा फ्लिप किया है ना एरेंट ने कि ईविल ऐसा दिखता ही नहीं है. ईविल बहुत नॉर्मल दिखता है. ईविल जो होता है वो एकदम नॉर्मल सा आएगा तुम्हारे सामने. उसने अच्छे से बाल बनाए होंगे, एक कोट डाला होगा, सूट और टाई पहनी होगी उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में. हमारे कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कुर्ता डाला होगा, एक पजामा डाला होगा, जो भी तुम एक इमेजरी एक नॉर्मल इंसान की तुम दिमाग में लाते हो. और वहाँ पे से भी ईविल, वहाँ से ईविल आता है और वो भी एक ईविल का सोर्स है. इस बारे में उसने बात की थी यहाँ पे. तो वी गोना रीड अबाउट दैट. व्हाट डिड हैना एरेंट रियली मीन बाय द बनालिटी ऑफ ईविल. बनालिटी मतलब बहुत रेगुलर होता है ईविल, कोई इतना खतरनाक सा नहीं दिखता है, वो होता बहुत रेगुलर है. और वो कैसे होता है ये हमें पता चलेगा होपफुली इस आर्टिकल में. दिस इज एन आर्टिकल बाय एऑन, इट इज एडिटेड बाय सैम ड्रेसर. ओके, कैन वन डू ईविल विदाउट बीइंग ईविल? This was the puzzling question that the philosopher Hannah Arendt grappled with when she reported for The New Yorker in 1961 on the war crimes trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi operative responsible for organizing the transportation of millions of Jews and others to various concentration camps in support of the Nazis' final solution. उसने एक रिपोर्ट बनाई थी जहाँ पे she was investigating, she was reporting on Adolf Eichmann. वो क्या Eichmann किसके लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल था कि सारे ज्यूज़ को पूरे जर्मनी भर से उठा के और कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स में लेकर आना. कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स में नाजीज का फाइनल सोल्यूशन था, इन्हें मार दो. वी ऑल नो व्हाट हैपेंड इन द कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स. पीपल वर सफोकेटेड, पीपल वर पॉइजनड एंड दे वर ट्रीटेड नॉट इवन लाइक ह्यूमंस. देयर हेड्स वर शेव्ड. लाइक इफ यू सी इमेजेस ऑफ व्हाट हैपेंड इनसाइड कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स तो दिल दहल जाएगा. जैसे अभी गाज़ा में जो हो रहा है वो सुन के दिल दहलता है, वैसा उस टाइम पे जब ये हो रहा था तब, तो उस टाइम पे जो ये कर रहा था उस पर क्रिमिनल ट्रायल हुआ, उस पर शी रिपोर्टेड. नाउ लेट्स फाइंड आउट व्हाट हैपेंड. Arendt found Eichmann an ordinary, rather bland bureaucrat who, in her words, was neither perverted nor sadistic but terrifyingly normal. Right? कोई perversion नहीं था उसके अंदर, कोई सेडिज्म नहीं था कि मुझे लोगों को मरते हुए देखना है, तड़पने हुए देखना है. वो बिल्कुल नॉर्मल सा था. He acted without any motive other than to diligently advance his career in the Nazi bureaucracy. वो एक गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर था. वो बस ये चाहता था कि मुझे प्रमोशन मिलेगा, जो मुझे ऊपर से मुझे जो मेरा पॉलिटिकल लीडर करने के लिए बोलेगा, अगर मैं वो करूँगा तो मेरे को प्रमोशन मिलेगा. अगर ऊपर वाले लीडर ने बोला इन सबको यहाँ लेकर आओ तो मैं यहाँ लेकर आ रहा हूँ. मुझे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता कि यहाँ पे जब मैं इतने सारे लोगों को पकड़ के लेकर आऊँगा वो सब मरने जा रहे हैं. मैं वो सोच भी नहीं रहा हूँ. मैं बहुत नॉर्मल इंसान हूँ. मैं सुबह ऑफिस जाता हूँ, ऑफिस में अपनी बीवी ने टिफ़िन बनाया होता है, वो टिफ़िन मैं खाता हूँ और वो टिफ़िन खा के काम करके मैं घर जाता हूँ. अब वो काम जो भी है वो काम मैं करता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे मेरा करियर बनाना है. In this case, Nazi bureaucracy में. Eichmann was not an immoral monster, she concluded in her study of the case Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil. Instead, he performed evil deeds without evil intentions, a fact connected to his thoughtlessness, a disengagement from reality of his evil acts. वो बिल्कुल evil intention के बिना काम कर रहा है. इसका ना बहुत अच्छा relevant unfortunate example है what is happening in Gaza. वहाँ पे भी जो लोग ने, इतने सारे लोग मर गए, ठीक है, हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं 50,000 बच्चे मर गए, लाखों लोग मर गए. वहाँ पे भी जो काम पे जा रहा है, जो आर्मी वाला है, वो सुबह काम पे जा रहा है, रॉकेट यहाँ से वहाँ डाल रहा है, फिर वापस घर जा रहा है, उसको जो बोला जा रहा है वो करते जा रहा है. बाकी लोग उसे देखे जा रहे हैं, वर्ल्ड लीडर्स कुछ लोग इग्नोर करते जा रहे हैं, किसी का कोई ऐसे इविल मोटिव नहीं है, पर वो बस ये करना है, बस ये करना है, वो यही सोच रहे हैं, राइट? आइकमैन, सो इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट, एंड दिस इज सो क्रेजी, लाइक नाउ it is the unfortunately the Zionist regime, who is perpetrating the crime on Muslims, and back then these crimes are committed on the Jews. So what have we really learned is the real question. Eichmann was not an immoral monster, she concluded in her study of the case. Instead, he performed evil deeds without evil intentions, a fact connected to his thoughtlessness, a disengagement from the reality of his evil acts. Eichmann never realized what he was doing due to an inability to think from the standpoint of somebody else. वो सोच ही नहीं रहा था कि जो मैं कर रहा हूँ वो उससे कोई लोग मर रहे हैं, या तो उसको इससे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ रहा था, वो कुछ सेडिज्म या बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग उसके बारे में सोच नहीं रहा था वो, कि नहीं यार इनको मारूंगा तो मैं नाजी जर्मनी बहुत बड़ा बन जाएगा, हाई हिटलर हो जाएगा। नहीं, काम करना है, ये मुझे करना है। Lacking this particular cognitive ability, he committed crimes under circumstances that made it well nigh impossible for him to know or feel that he was doing wrong. Arendt dubbed these collective characteristics of Eichmann the banality of evil. He was not inherently evil, but merely shallow and clueless, a joiner, in the words of one contemporary interpreter of Arendt's thesis. इसका और एक comparison you can keep with, like when hate crimes happen anywhere, right? When people are just doing hate crimes, or when people are just blindly supporting something, or are making really bad jokes about certain communities, about certain people, and like just comparing them and with animals, comparing them with insects, and not treating them as human, and it is considered to be normal, right? Because everybody else around you is doing it, there is not much resistance to it, तो तुम्हें भी तब लगता है हाँ यार ये जो हो रहा है ये ठीक ही हो रहा होगा. In the words of one contemporary interpreter of Arendt's thesis, he was a man who drifted into the Nazi party in search of purpose and direction, not out of deep ideological belief, just भाई career बनाना है. In Arendt's telling, Eichmann reminds us of the protagonist in Albert Camus' novel The Stranger, who randomly and casually kills a man, but then afterwards feels no remorse. There was no particular intention or obvious evil motive. The deed just happened. हो गया, casually हो गया, और कुछ remorse ही नहीं है. This wasn't Arendt's first somewhat superficial impression of Eichmann. Even 10 years after his trial, she wrote in 1971, I was struck by the manifest shallowness in the doer, that is Eichmann, which made it impossible to trace the uncontestable evil of his deeds to any deeper level of roots or motives. The deeds were monstrous, but the doer, at least the very effective one now on trial, was quite ordinary, commonplace, and neither demonic nor monstrous. The banality of evil thesis was a flashpoint for controversy. To Arendt's critics, it seemed absolutely inexplicable that Eichmann could have played a key role in the Nazi genocide, yet have no evil intentions. तो क्रिटिक्स कह रहे हैं कि यार ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है कि उसके इंटेंशंस ईविल नहीं है, वो एक नॉर्मल इंसान था, ऑर्डर्स फॉलो कर रहा था, इतना तो कैसे हो सकता है अगर उसने की रोल निभाया है नाजी जेनोसाइड में. Gershom Scholem, a fellow philosopher, wrote to Arendt in 1963 that her banality of evil thesis was merely a slogan that does not impress me, certainly as the product of profound analysis. ठीक है, critics थे. Mary McCarthy, a novelist and good friend of Arendt, voiced sheer incomprehension. She says, it seems to me what you're saying is that Eichmann lacks an inherent human quality, the capacity for thought, conscience. But then isn't he a monster simply? Again, isn't he a monster? Like he knew what was going to happen. It was not like he didn't know. So then isn't he a monster? The controversy continues to the present day. The philosopher Alan Wolfe in Political Evil criticized Arendt for psychologizing, that is, avoiding the issue of evil as evil by defining it in the limited context of Eichmann's humdrum existence. Wolfe argued that Arendt concentrated too much on who Eichmann was rather than what Eichmann did. For Arendt's critics, this focus on Eichmann's insignificant banal life seemed to be an absurd digression from his evil deeds. Okay. Other recent critiques have documented Arendt's historical errors, which led her to miss a deeper evil in Eichmann when she claimed that his evil was thought-defying, as Arendt wrote to the philosopher Karl Jaspers 3 years after the trial. The historian Deborah Lipstadt, the defendant in David Irving's Holocaust Denial Libel trial, decided in 2000, cites documentation released by the Israeli government for use in the legal proceeding. It proves, Lipstadt asserts in the Eichmann trial, that Arendt's use of the term banal was flawed. ठीक है? The memoir by Eichmann, released by Israel for use in my trial, revealed the degree to which Arendt was wrong about Eichmann. It is permeated with expressions of Nazi ideology. Eichmann accepted and espoused the idea of racial purity. Okay, so again, it is getting a little complicated, but the idea honestly remains the same. That the idea still remains that sometimes when we see evil happening around us, and when we are protected, and we are not, the evil is not happening on us. Now when I say we and us, it means that our communities specifically, or our nation states, or the regions that we are living in, they are not specifically targeted. When it is happening in somewhere else, or even if it's happening where you are, but to someone else where you live, sometimes it happens so much, it happens to such an extent, it is normalized to such an extent that you forget how evil it is, and you just go around. It is almost like, it is almost natural sometimes to, to kill a mosquito who's flying in the air, because you have deemed it to be harmful, right? And maybe it is harmful, right? But then sometimes you equate other human beings, people from certain communities, people from certain areas, people who look like in a certain look a certain way, people who eat certain things, and you decide कि नहीं, इनको अगर कुछ होता है तो मुझे चलेगा, I'm okay. So then that becomes like the banality of evil. Like evil becomes normalized, and and the person who's performing that evil sometimes doesn't even know that, or realize what he or she is doing is evil. And even if he or she does realize that what he or she is doing is evil, because it is not affecting his everyday life, because it is not affecting his everyday life, his family, his daughters, his sons, his wife, his parents, his friends, the institutions that he goes to work at, the places where he eats at, or where his kids study at, तब तक उसको चलता है, उसको ऐसा फील होता है कि this is fine because it is not directly affecting me, and I cannot see the evil with my own eyes. So this is what this particular article is about. A similar article in the BBC again talked about the new movie that I told you about, that's going to come, right? It is starring Russell Crowe as manipulative Hermann Goring, and it is also, I think, will have Rami Malek in it. So let's read this BBC article as well. We will skim through the article because sometimes it does talk about other films which are made on the same thing. But right now what we are interested in is knowing what happened during the Nuremberg trials, right? So yeah, a criminal trial is inherently dramatic, often full of revelatory testimony, sparring lawyers, and stern pronouncements from the bench. Little wonder that so many powerful films and TV series are set in the courtroom. Inherit the Wind, To Kill a Mockingbird, A Few Good Men, and presumed innocent. Right? So many movies, Indian movies are also there where a criminal trial is shown, right? Every trial provides a denouement, the verdict, which determines guilt or innocence, and naturally engages the audience's own sense of right and wrong, right? But the trial that began in Nuremberg, Germany, so Germany में एक जगह है Nuremberg, late in 1945, just a few months after the end of World War II, stands apart. This trial stands apart. It's the greatest trial, right? In an unprecedented attempt to hold individuals responsible for war crimes, the Nazi High Command was brought to that bomb-shattered, rubble-strewn city to appear before a military tribunal. एक military court setup हुई, वहाँ पे सारे जिनको पकड़ा था उन्होंने, जो responsible हैं इस वॉर क्राइम्स के लिए, जिन वॉर क्राइम्स को सैंक्शन किया गया था, जिन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स में लोगों को भेजा गया था, वो सब अब पकड़े गए हैं. दे आर इन द लूजिंग पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री, दे आर इन द लूजिंग साइड, राइट? जर्मनी लॉस्ट द वॉर. तो अब ये सारों को आंसर देना पड़ेगा. इनका कोर्ट ट्रायल हुआ था. Although some on the allied side कौन थे जो जीत गए थे? The US, the UK, France and Soviet Union believed summarily shooting the Nazi leaders was a simpler option. A decision was taken to grant these men their days in court. The tribunals, prosecutors and judges bore a huge responsibility to act fairly, as many Germans perceived the trials as nothing more than vengeful victors' justice. So they had to be like Germans जो हैं. Imagine you are part of a country that has lost a war. You're done. And you had so much pride. You all thought that, Germany is going to rule the world. And like, I've heard Hitler having said, wherever a German stands, it's Germany. And now suddenly something happened, US dropped two bombs on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and several other things happened. And now your country has lost the war. So as an ordinary German citizen, तुम्हारे दिमाग में तो यही होगा ना कि अब जो होगा वो विक्टर डिसाइड करेगा. अब मैं क्या सही मानता हूँ, क्या गलत मानता हूँ, मेरे लीडर्स क्या सही मानते हैं, क्या गलत मानते हैं, वो मैटर ही नहीं करता, क्योंकि मेरे लीडर्स हार गए, हम लोग वॉर हार गए, राइट. This potent history has inspired filmmakers before. Now the author goes on to talk about several films. So then he talks about this documentary where his film by James Vanderbilt, where his film Nuremberg was screened for the first time in the US. Growing up, Vanderbilt, now 50, had been aware of Nazi crimes. The events were relatively recent. But for his own daughter and her peers, the stories are distant and almost unreal. Sometimes we need to know about all these things, right? So that we don't repeat these things. Although I think enough people know about what happened in World War II and a lot of over the course of a lot of history. But since they are not in power, these things keep on happening again. Vanderbilt found his angle upon reading The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, a book by journalist Jack Elhai about German Hermann Göring and the young army psychiatrist tasked with determining the mental competence of the accused Germans slated to stand trial at Nuremberg. ठीक है, very good. The flamboyant Göring, Hitler's second in command. अब Hitler's second in command है, Hitler is dead, Nazi Germany is gone. The flamboyant Göring, Hitler's second in command, was a flying ace in World War I who became a big man, nearly 300 pounds. He'd been photographed in innumerable uniforms, often carrying an ivory baton studded with diamonds, presented to him by Hitler to designate his unique rank as Reichsmarschall. Göring was the most senior of the 22 prominent Nazis captured by the Allies. Many others had killed themselves or vanished. On 9th May 1945, soldiers of the US 7th Army near Salzburg, Austria, encountered Göring driving in a convoy of cars, accompanied by an entourage, his wife, young daughter, and other relatives, servants, and military aides. From the start, as shown in Nuremberg, the notorious Nazi leader fascinated his captors. They gawked at him, asked him for his autograph, and chatted with him in English. He spoke the language fairly well. You're arresting somebody, he's a leader. And people are asking for his autograph. That's super interesting. The Nazi and the psychiatrist. Soon, however, Göring was separated from his family and flown to Bad Mondorf in Luxembourg, where the US Army had refitted a large hotel to serve as a stockade to imprison the top Nazis. Wow. He was flown in Luxembourg, where US Army had refitted a large hotel to serve as a stockade to imprison top Nazis. Alright. They weren't buddies, but they formed a connection. And Kelly recognized that they shared certain personality traits. I think Kelly aayega abhi. It was there in Luxembourg that the psychiatrist Douglas M. Kelly spent hours interviewing Göring and administering psychological tests. Kelly quickly discovered that the former Reich Marshal was addicted to paracodeine, a painkiller, popping dozens of pills a day. He helped Göring break that addiction and lose weight. The psychiatrist helped him break the addiction and lose weight. They weren't buddies, author tells the BBC, but they formed a connection, and Kelly recognized that they shared certain personality traits. As well as acknowledging Göring's charm and intelligence, the doctor noted his drive, his defiance, his enormous ego, and his intense loyalty to family and country. The doctor's own ambition was to identify among the Nazis a shared psychosis or particular derangement, because only that he believed could account for their monstrous act. कि कुछ तो गलत होगा इन लोगों में बहुत भयंकर, जिसकी वजह से इन्होंने एक जो किया वो किया. अब हम कल जब नेतन्याहू when he serves for his war crimes, maybe I don't know what will happen in the future, or like if the Israeli government is the investigation happens and we find out what happened and why it happened and why did it happen on such scale. So हम भी ये सोचेंगे कि इनका साइकोलॉजिकल असेसमेंट करते हैं, क्या दिमाग था इनका, क्योंकि ये तो डॉक्टर यही सोच रहा था कि only that could account for their monstrous act. Yet, after intense study, Kelly conceded the men were fundamentally opportunists who had grabbed the chance to exercise power and exploit others. Isn't it always that, guys? It is always that. Arendt also says the same thing. These men were opportunists. उनको बस ऊपर जाना था. अब वो नहीं देख रहे थे कि हम वो लोग कर क्या रहे हैं. Who had grabbed the chance to exercise power and exploit others. And he concluded there have always been people like this, although the atrocities they commit are much smaller. There have always been people like this. There are still people like this. Rami Malek, so Rami Malek plays the psychologist. Rami Malek in the role of Kelly and Russell Crowe playing Goring have excellent on-screen chemistry. The audience watches the pair converse, jousting and joking and coming to trust each other. Okay, now they're talking about the film. Uh, Goring enlists Kelly's aid to communicate with his wife and daughter, and the doctor, defying protocol, hand delivers letters to them for Goring. During one exchange with Kelly, included in the book but not the film, Goring tells the doctor he fears that he and his wife will both soon be dead and asks the doctor to adopt their 7-year-old daughter Edda and raise her in America. While Kelly did not record how exactly he replied, Elhai wrote, "This astonishing request, a sign of Goring's respect for Kelly, moved the psychiatrist who knew how much Edda meant to her father." The more conventional second half of Nuremberg takes place in court, in testimony closely adhering to the actual transcripts. Crow, as Goring, launches a vigorous defense laced with self-effacing repartee and manages to wrongfoot the US Chief Prosecutor Robert H. Jackson. The British lawyer Sir David Maxwell Fyfe has great success by using incriminating documents to establish the former Reich Marshal's direct responsibility for the persecution of Jews. Shocking film shot by the Allied soldiers who liberated the concentration camps is then screened as actually happened at Nuremberg. Goring looks away as emaciated figures and piles of bodies appear in flickering black and white. Wow. Reading this now is so crazy. This is so crazy based on what's going on in the world right now. But that scale was something else. But this is now, that was then. But still, you should read about all of this. Everybody should. The graphic film of the camps was the turning point in the trial, bringing the horror of the Holocaust directly into the courtroom. Eisenhower had insisted that the camps be filmed. There was a call coming. Okay, anyway. And the Russian made films too. These were extraordinarily effective in conveying the true scale of crimes, right? And right now, so there were films that were being made, and today there is social media documentation of these war crimes. There is so much documentation. There were reporters you followed and then who later, died. Live documentation is happening. It's repeating itself. Goring was among those Nazis sentenced to death by hanging, but he took his own life the night before his scheduled execution by killing himself with cyanide. In the film, how he managed to obtain the capsule is left unexplained. A 2005 confession by a US prison guard offers one plausible answer. The guard Herbert Lee Stivers recounted how a German girl he had met called Mona fooled him into passing Goring a small glass vial which she said was medicine and subsequently disappeared. But Goring left himself a note for the prison commander saying that none of the guards was responsible and that he had smuggled the cyanide into his jail in a jar of hair cream and then hidden it. In another note, Goring claimed he would have allowed the allies to execute him by firing squad, a soldierly death, but he refused to accept the humiliation of being hanged. Like, I will not be hanged, let me kill me with a firing squad. That's still a soldierly death. In Vanderbilt's film, the final word is not Goring's, but given to a young Sergeant Howard Trieste, who acted as one of Kelly's translators. Born into a German Jewish family in Munich that relocated to the US, had many relatives who perished in Auschwitz. In the scene when Kelly is departing Germany for home, Trieste says, "Do you know why it happened here? Because people let it happen." Do you know why it happened here? Because people let it happen. Because people let it happen. That is why it happens. Most of the time, that is why it happens. Because people let it happen. Nobody complains. Nobody says anything. The question of collective national guilt was one that Kelly pondered for years afterwards, according to Elhai, and he was on guard back in the United States for incipient fascism. Abhi fascism shuru ho raha tha wahan pe. He was suspicious of politicians, especially populists in the South, who played on racial segregation to assemble power. Kelly wrote a book about his experiences with the Nazi defendants titled 22 Cells in Nuremberg and lectured widely. Yet his post war life disappointed him. His book failed to sell well, and despite relentless work as a teacher, doctor, criminologist, and police consultant, he never succeeded professionally to the extent he felt he should. He began to drink too much when his wife advised seeking help from a fellow psychiatrist for his often low and angry moods. He rejected that idea as undermining of his own authority as an expert on mental health. A mental health professional who refused to seek mental health. That was Kelly. Aged 45, on New Year's Day 1958, after a loud argument with his wife in front of his son and his father, Kelly dramatically swallowed cyanide, killing himself in the same way Goring had. A sad end for a psychiatrist who sought earnestly to understand men who committed sickening crimes. Wow. This is insane. This is very, very good. Very good. And like very interesting and very relevant to read both this article and the banality of evil article in terms of what is happening in the world right now, what happened in Gaza. In that context, this is very interesting. Okay, having tackled that, let's move on to the next important article of today. Why commuters are turning to public transport to stay healthy and fit. People are now traveling in metro or in the buses maybe, but mainly metros because they lose weight. Of course, there are a lot of people who don't have an option, but there are lots of people who do have options. They are now traveling in metro to lose weight. Okay, let's see what Himakshi Panwar has written for the Indian Express. Public transport remains a preferred choice for many, even those who own personal vehicles. Personal vehicle है तो भी उनको public transport अच्छा लगता है. From buses and autos to the metro, commuters increasingly associate travel with physical activity. I am a licensed driver, but once in a while I don't mind taking a bus or metro, said Subhanshu Gupta, a tech professional in Gurugram. He added, traveling via public transport keeps me on my toes. It reminds me to push my body beyond luxury and comfort of my four-wheeler. The Delhi Metro in particular appeals not just for its AC coaches and comfortable seats, but for its extensive connectivity across the Delhi NCR region. It's connected like anything from right side of Delhi to the left side of Delhi, from top of Delhi to the north of Delhi. The south of Delhi. It's connected everywhere. Name a place anywhere in the metro network and you'll find it on the map. It has made our lives easier and better. Not only is the process time saving, but it also helps us stay fit. Wow, fitness is also there, time saving it is also there, money wise you also get a good deal, traffic also you don't get. What's there to not like, right? So there is a photo here of like a staircase जहाँ पे जैसे तुम ऊपर चलते जाओगे वो तुम्हें बताता है कि कितनी किलो कैलोरीज तुम बर्न कर रहे हो, right? Calorie signages. A unique initiative to encourage fitness is the calorie counter signage at metro station staircases introduced in early 2025 at 36 stations including Horse Cause, Botanical Garden, Rajiv Chowk. These colorful signs encourage passengers to take the stairs instead of escalators or lifts. Stairs se chalo, India mein stairs se chalo. The idea is to promote healthy commuting habits among passengers. These eye-catching signs are strategically placed on the stairs to motivate commuters to climb rather than use lifts or escalators, said Anuj Dayal, Corporate Communications DMRC. For Srishti Dhanjal, 29, switching from metro to car travel reduced her daily steps from 7-8K to 3-4K. For Sadhna Yadav, fitness goes beyond the gym. The calorie signage at metro stations is one of the ways I stay motivated. I have lost 3 kgs by commuting and exercising daily. The fear of hitting 30 keeps me motivated to stay fit and young. Motherfucker. The fear of hitting 30 keeps me motivated to stay fit and young. Even older commuters benefit. Anukampa Bisht, 58, takes stairs most of the time, noting that it strengthens knees and is energy efficient compared to elevators. It varies individually, but for people my age, it helps maintain strength. Okay. Yeah, people do use stairs. They love it. They feel like it's a fitness thing, and I think it is. Not everyone agrees. Some commuters, however, find stairs inconvenient. For some, Samapti Das, 39, few notice the calorie signs and long escalator queues make stairs less appealing. Commuting long distances like Dwarka to Noida makes escalator convenient and less tiring. Correct, she said. Himanshu Rawat echoed this view. DMRC's initiative is good in spirit, but fitness integration depends on personal choice. People who care about fitness will take stairs, others won't, even if signs exist. Buses too encourage physical activity by requiring walking to and from stops. Yet reliability and safety concerns deter some. Public transport reduces stress from driving, congestion and parking, said Nehul Sharma, 34, though she prefers metro over buses for time-saving reasons. Shrishti Tiwari, also in her early 20s, added, public transport is not always safe. So yeah, public safety is also a big thing, yeah. Like people can say all of the good things, but it's nighttime, you're traveling alone, you're a woman or you're a transgender person. Fuck it, you're even a man in Delhi. You'll be just little bit. You look around, you look over your shoulder. Um, Public transport is not always safe, so I opt for personal vehicles unless necessary. Experts weigh in. Incorporating daily walking into your routine, such as choosing stairs over elevators or walking to metro stations, significantly improves cardiovascular health. Achha ji, as suggested by Dr. Ravi Prakash, big doctor. He added, walking is a low impact aerobic exercise that gently raises the heart rate, improves blood flow and enhances oxygen delivery to all parts of the body. Over time, these small but consistent efforts strengthen the heart muscle, lower blood pressure, and help maintain healthy cholesterol levels. A stress buster. Besides helping regulating heart rate, physical activity such as walking is a natural stress reliever. Dr. Prakash explained that walking promotes the release of endorphins, the body's natural mood lifting chemicals, and helps lower cortisol, the hormone associated with stress and high blood pressure. For commuters, even short walks to and from metro stations or bus stops can serve as a break from mental fatigue and traffic-related tension, the doctor elaborated. Regular walking helps calm the nervous system, stabilize heart rate, and prevents long-term adverse effect of chronic stress on the heart. It also boosts energy levels and mental clarity, allowing individuals to handle daily commuting pressures more calmly and positively. Perfect. Basically, walk, 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 walk. Dr. Prakash reiterated that walking short distances instead of relying entirely on vehicles help keep the body active and the heart strong. Choosing stairs over elevators whenever possible adds small bursts of cardiovascular activity to the day. Staying hydrated during travel helps support healthy circulation and maintain energy levels. Practicing deep breathing or short mindful exercises while commuting helps reduce stress and stabilize blood pressure. Small, consistent steps matter. The next time you head out, consider taking public transport. A catchy calorie sign at the metro stairs or a walk to a bus stop could subtly transform your physical and mental well-being. All right. So walk and you can become Neha Dhupia one day. You can become fit basically. Last article of the day. Let's just read it. Why do cyclones move towards land? Okay. साइक्लोन जो होता है, साइक्लोन को हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं? पहले तो ये सबसे पहले हमें पता करना पड़ेगा. साइक्लोन को कहते हैं चक्रवात. ठीक है, अब चक्रवात को हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं ये भी हमें चेक करना चाहिए. लाइक साइक्लोन मेरे हिसाब से तूफान. ठीक है, तो हमेशा लैंड की तरफ कैसे आता है तूफान, इसको समझते हैं. वसुदेव मुकुंद लिखते हैं हिंदू के लिए, इफ द ग्लोबल geography were reversed or if the trade winds blew the other way, cyclones would rarely make landfall. Okay, let's just try to read it and see if we understand it very quickly. Very quickly, one last article left. Tropical cyclones are carried by the large scale wind pattern that govern the atmosphere. एक wind चलती है, उस वजह से tropical cyclones आते हैं. What is a cyclone? Quickly, let's just see the definition. What is a cyclone? Powerful weather systems that cause significant damage to built and natural environment. ठीक है, whirlpool जैसा होता है और वो आता है. ठीक है. These storms form over warm ocean waters where the sea surface temperature is about 26 degrees Celsius or more, providing the heat and moisture they need to grow. But once they have formed, the way they move depends entirely on the winds that surround them. Much like a leaf swept along by a river. ठीक है, एक बार बन जाते हैं गर्म पानी के ऊपर, फिर वो मूव करते हैं, जहाँ भी हवा जा रही है उधर मूव करते हैं. The tropical areas where cyclones develop are roughly 5 degrees and 20 degrees north and south of the equator. So equator से 5 degrees north है and 20 degrees south है. Okay. Here the dominant winds are the trade winds which blow from east to west throughout the year as part of the global Hadley circulation. ठीक है. This is a global convection pattern driven by the uneven heating of the earth. Warm air rises near the equator, moves towards the poles, cools and sinks around 30-degree latitude, then flows back towards the equator at the surface. Because the earth rotates, the returning air is deflected toward the west by the Coriolis effect, creating the easterly trade winds. A lot of English, nothing we understood because a lot of geography in it as well. We push forward. These winds thus tend to push storms westward across the ocean, which is why tropical cyclones in the Bay of Bengal move towards India's east coast. It's also why tropical storms in the Atlantic Ocean move from the African coast towards the Caribbean and the Americas, and why those in the Pacific Ocean often head towards Asia and Australia. Wow, guys, if any one of you understands this, write in the comments. While tropical cyclones draw their energy from warm ocean waters and can thus become more intense as long as they remain offshore, the winds don't give them a choice. And as the storm moves, it may also encounter other atmospheric systems such as mid-latitude westerlies further north, which can alter its course. Sometimes these changes steer a storm harmlessly into open water, but it's often the case that the prevailing flow carries the storm over land. Nothing I understand. In December 2023, but we will continue to read. In December 2023, because the steering winds over the Bay of Bengal were weak, Cyclone Michaung moved very slowly and lingered for many hours offshore before making landfall. If the global geography were reversed or if the trade winds blew the other way, cyclones would instead be carried out over open water and rarely make landfall. Okay, a question obviously arises, why then would a cyclone in the Arabian Sea make landfall over the west coast of India? Shouldn't it move towards the Arabian Peninsula or the Horn of Africa instead? If trade winds were the only influence, then yes, storms in the Arabian Sea should indeed drift towards the Arabian Peninsula or Africa, but in practice they often move towards India instead because of the monsoons. Wow. In the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, the trade winds blow consistently westwards, but in the Indian Ocean, the surface winds reverse directions with the monsoons. From around June to September, the southwest monsoon dominates. The winds blow from the southwest towards the northeast. This means that during the monsoon and its onset and retreat phases, the low-level steering flow over the Arabian Sea often points towards India rather than away from it. Cyclones forming in this period are carried northeastward and make landfall along India's western coast, particularly Gujarat, Maharashtra, and sometimes Kerala. Outside the monsoon season, during winter and early spring, the circulation reverses. The northeast monsoon brings dry air from the Indian subcontinent towards the equator and Africa. So cyclones that form then are more likely to drift westwards towards the Arabian Sea or Somalia. However, a cyclone is also unlikely to form at this time because the waters are cooler and wind shear is stronger. You read a lot of things and you don't understand anything. So this was one of those articles. I mean, it's not very difficult, but I could not visualize it, and I just need to brush up on things. What this also teaches any one of us who reads anything, or if your work is reading news or analyzing stuff, try another medium. So for me, this is a more visual medium video. If someone had showed me a video कि cyclone धरती की तरफ क्यों आते हैं और मुझे वीडियो पे तो समझाया होता है सेम चीज़, I would have understood it better. So sometimes for some learnings, audio version or like written version is not very good. It's the video version that works, and that is why I work at Kiki Create, where you can watch a lot of videos where we make in-depth videos as well. Thank you so much for joining this live. I'll see you again tomorrow, and we'll do 3 more articles that we find important, and we'll learn how to learn, and we'll break those things down. Thank you so much for joining the live. Please drop a comment if you have come till this point and tell me what I can improve and what exactly it is that you want to see on the next live. Thank you so much. Bye bye. I'll see you.